Welcome to Decleated with one of your two hosts, John Restrepo here. I'm ready to talk about some Giants football. I finally get to come on here and be a little positive after quite a bit of negativity the first 3 weeks. But in Jaxson Dart's debut, we get to see him come away with a win. And I guess I'll just jump in and start talking about his performance. Visually, eye test, he did all that you wanted in a first career NFL start, especially for a guy who I really didn't think was ready to start this early in his career. He was a guy that, when we traded up for him in the draft, it felt like he was more of a project, sit behind Russ and Jameis and these guys. And I think ideally, if the Giants could have won a couple of those first three games and the media and all the storylines that circled around the coaching and the team in general, weren't so negative and so, headhunter-esque, I guess. I think this would have been a completely different situation. And I think that, Russell probably would have had his job for a little longer, but just based on the circumstances and just the hopeless and, desperate this team was, they clearly needed a spark. And, obviously Brian Dable had not been shy about how ready he felt Jaxson Dart was compared to, I'm sure, what outside optics were. And even leading up to this game, there were both sides of the coin where people are like, oh, rushing Dart is going to be a mistake and he's not, built for this yet and whatever. And then you got other people saying just how badly the Giants needed a spark and that they needed a guy to come out with his hair on fire and really add some juice to this team. And, I'm not the biggest believer of auras winning you games and swagger and everything is the best thing in the world. But, you kind of saw on Sunday. I mean, being at the stadium myself, the energy in the building felt different. I don't know if it was just because it was a 1 o'clock game, and I feel like Giants fans typically come out more and in the masses during the a nice warm, sunny 1 o'clock game versus when you got to wake up for work the next day in a primetime game. But it was a lot of blue and like Giants blue, not Chargers blue. A lot of Giants blue, a lot of the standing ovation for Dart. When he first got in the game, and it just felt different. There was definitely a different energy there, and a lot of hope and promise, and some nerves too. Not just from I can only imagine what Dart's feeling, but as fans and just seeing how miserable and how just starved for any fun. Really, I talked about last week about sucking the fun out of this team and this organization and this sport for a lot of Giants fans. But I think this was a huge spark and sign of some things to come. Anyway, in terms of Dart's play, just taking all the emotion and stuff out of it, he didn't blow me away and of like, oh my God, like this guy is unbelievable. I'm like, we did not know what we had. And I'm like, again, it's his first start in a first career start for a guy like this. I think he played well. He showed a lot of confidence. He clearly added the running element to from the quarterback position that was able to help move the chains, especially when you have this struggling offensive line. We can't really run the ball super well, and just being able to have that extra guy to account for, I feel like was huge. How many times did we see Jaxson Dart step up in the pocket, look around, and just take off for a first down? I think that was huge. I think, and you know what? I think that he did a good job of reading defenses and not panicking or going straight to the first read. Like he scanned the field well. There was some design where you look off the safety and you hit the tight end in the middle of the field kind of thing. But I think he did a good job, and even some of the scramble drill moments too. I think one of the best throws that he had all game was when they were pinned back into their own territory and makes an adjustment on the run to Darius Slayton to come back, and he catches it for a first down on third down. That was a great play. I mean, there was a play over to the middle of the Bellinger to get a first down. Again, he's not taking. I mean, he took deep shots, but he wasn't really hitting on them. Like he missed a couple of guys deep, couple incompletions downfield. Didn't really see crazy deep bomb, whatever. But I mean, he was able to manage the game well, and again use some of his athleticism and everything, and again like just stepping up in the pocket and not bailing out, which I feel like Russell Wilson was just. I mean, he even came in for a couple games too when Dart kept battering ramming himself. But I mean, you see Russell Wilson just kind of panic in the pocket and bail out so quickly, but Dart kind of steps up, is able to scan a little bit, and then whether or not he's able to find an open receiver, we saw that a few times, or take off. It was great. So promising things. Again, nothing that's absolutely blowing me away, but definitely something that you could build on, and they're going to have to, because I do not think that this style of offense. I'm sure a lot of Giants fans feel the same way, but the way that the game that Dart had, while it was great and it was exciting, it's not going to be sustainable all season, or especially an entire career, because him not sliding down and taking unnecessary hits. I feel like that we just can't do that, and just holding the ball in the pocket. Obviously, it's his first start. He's trying to make plays. He's trying to put the team on his back, so to speak, but just knowing when you got to give up and just throw the ball away instead of taking a sack, or trying to do too much back there, I feel like is definitely somewhere that he's going to have to learn as well. But again, I have to reiterate that for a first start in the NFL, it's really not that bad. And I'm not going to get hung up on the stats. He only had 100 throwing yards. But again, you can see the fire and the juice that this guy plays with, and the energy that he, that resonates around him. And a lot of people buying into just the mentality that he has of fighting and scratching and clawing for every yard. I mean, between him and the other guy who was literally scraping, running through people, trying to get every single yard, Cam Scatabo has just been fantastic, and he's great to watch. And he's another guy where longevity-wise, I am petrified for him, but he runs with his head on fire, and he really adds a lot of juice. I mean, it is so great when you see just the pile getting pushed forward. And I mean, unfortunately, it's not because of our offensive line. It's because of Cam Scatabo. So, a lot of positives from the rookies. And speaking of rookies, Abdul Carter finally getting used in the position that he was drafted to play. We saw the most edge rush snaps from Abdul Carter than we have all season, and it paid off. He got his first full sack, and he was just wreaking havoc on Justin Herbert all day. So it was great to see. I mean, he really also looked like his head was on fire too. He was all over the place. He had, I think, 8 quarterback pressures and 5 hits or knockdowns. It was fantastic. He looked great. The defensive line finally looked like the unit that we had invested all this capital in, that we thought at the beginning of the year was really going to be the difference maker on this team. And we saw that come into fruition. I mean, Brian Burns is right now the best player on the New York Giants. He is playing fantastic football. And, while Dexter Lawrence hasn't been lighting the world up, I mean, you started to see a little more push. And guess what? That pick, I mean, I've never heard MetLife that loud in the last, I couldn't even tell you how many years. Just seeing him rumble down and getting his first career pick was great. But no, it was a fun game to be a part of. And, again, the energy and just the finally we have a win, I feel like really resonated. But I also don't want that to distract everyone from some of the negatives that occurred. And again, I'm very happy that we won. I'm happy about Dart's first performance, and I hope he continue to grow. But there was a lot that made this game pretty sweaty, and a lot of things that were not great. I mean, number one, which is not X and O's related at all, is obviously the Malik Neighbors injury, and that is just a punch in the stomach, especially when you got a rookie quarterback in the game now. To have a guy like that can stretch the field, that can just be that reliable guy, it makes me nervous for Jaxson Dart going forward. And obviously, I fear for not I fear, but I'm praying that Malik Neighbors could come back and be that same guy when he comes back from the injury. And obviously, people recover well from ACL injuries and everything, and that's something that we've been seeing more common as of late. But still, I mean, especially for such an explosive, like twitchy route runner guy like Neighbors, I feel like an ACL injury is just not an easy thing to recover from, and be able to get trust in that leg again, and it just sucks because how many other young talented players? I mean, Saquon Barkley and Odell Beckham and Sterling Shepard and all these guys that have just had these crazy injuries on the MetLife turf. It really feels like a curse. And it's just really unfortunate because just you see the promise in the guy, and he's only in his second year. It just really, really hurts. But so that's definitely one thing where you kind of get blinded in the moment, but then Monday morning you come back to reality. You're like, oh my goodness, we're without our best offensive player. So bittersweet, but I wish him the speedy, healthy recovery and want him to get back to playing Giants football. And the thing that really sucks too is that we will not even talk about him now for the rest of the year. I mean, it's week 4, and we got 14 more weeks of football where Malik Neighbors is not going to be in shoulder pads and dressed up, ready to play football for the Giants, and that really, really sucks. But anyway, to get into some of the other observations from the game, I think defensively, I mean, we have been talking about the Shane Bowen situation, and again, hinted at finally putting Abdul Carter where he belongs at edge rusher clearly was the right decision and paid off immensely on Sunday. But the biggest thing, really, and this isn't just a defensive thing, this is across the board. The discipline of this team still is not great. I mean, so many penalties. I mean, the Giants lucked out that the Chargers also committed a ton of penalties in this game. But I mean, just between stupid false starts and defensively holdings, and it just frustrates me to no end, especially when you have easy open tackles you have to make, and they just keep bouncing. Our guys just getting bounced around or driven 3 yards forward. It's not great. So not super thrilled about that. And there's obviously things they could clean up. But no, I think the biggest difference in this game was just a little more complimentary football. It didn't feel like, oh, first half was all offense and second half was all defense, which is probably switched around now that I'm thinking about it. But it felt like more cohesive. It was a little more back and forth. The defense got burnt on a long drive, or they gave up the score before half. Offense went down and did their job and scored. So it was a little more complimentary. Felt a little more team, and maybe that was just more of like the energy and the juice that's being added to the equation that kind of helps out with that. And if so, kudos to Dable for igniting that and by appointing Dart, and for Dart himself for bringing that. But the offensive play calling continues to be a problem, especially in the red zone. The opening drive touchdown and the one driver they had the shovel pass to Theo Johnson for the touchdown were fine. Outside of that, though, I mean, after the Dexter Lawrence interception, you get the ball at the 3-yard line, and again, false starts and penalties, which aren't great, play into that, but we got to be better. We got to be better calling plays here, and not just run pass. It's just it's not going to work. It's so predictable. So that has to get something needs to change there, to say the least. That's really what it comes down to. But again, I don't want to nitpick too much and be super down, especially when I don't really get a lot of these moments in general. I don't get to get on here and feel a little juiced up about a Giants win. So I'm happy that I got to witness a win. It was great. And I just hope that hopefully we can keep building across the board. I think this is it shows a level of competence at least where, maybe we aren't a complete and utter disaster, but we have good players clearly, and we should be getting more. We should be getting results to show for that. So just being able to finally, we got that first win. That's it. Let's try to make a streak here. And the Giants have a huge opportunity here against the New Orleans Saints. Defensively, this is a game that defensive players, defensive staff should be salivating over. You got a quarterback that, he's not blowing anyone away. Spencer Rattler isn't necessarily playing horrible football, but he's not fantastic. You got to get pressure on him. You got to unleash this front four and let them take over this game. Because guess what? The New Orleans Saints do not have any vertical threats at the wide receiver position right now. They need to capitalize on that because, obviously cornerbacks are a weak spot on this team. And if they don't have that threat and our corners can hold their own, make Spencer Rattler hold onto the ball just a little bit more, let these pass rushers eat, get creative with some stunts, send a blitz here and then instead of just dropping 8 into coverage. Let's do something different. Let us get Spencer Rattler confused and off his rocker early, and let's take care of business here. It's a very winnable game. This is not an offense that scares me, and it shouldn't be an offense that scares the New York Giants. I think offensively for the Giants, they have to run the football, establish the run well, and try not to kill Jaxson Dart in the process. That would be nice. And they got to try something new at receiver. I mean, Jalen Hyatt is just a paperweight at this point. He is doing nothing on the field but getting cardio in. But we got to get someone in there with some juice or someone reliable with some hands. Let's get Isaiah Hodges off of the practice squad or, someone of that sorts that can kind of try to be a fraction of what Malik Neighbors could be. I mean, not even close to Malik Neighbors. I'm not even going to say you could replace him, but, just have some kind of sure hands on the outside. They're going to have to find a way to scheme up some receivers because as much as I love Wan'Dale Robinson, I mean, he's limited at a 5'8" frame. Darius Slayton's going to be your wide receiver 1, which he has stepped in and done before and been serviceable. But again, he's not a guy that's he's not going to be your 1,000-yard receiver, 10 touchdown guy this year, or any year for that matter. But you need something else, I think. And Jalen Hyatt isn't the answer. I don't know if there's a guy in the building who can answer that call. Even if Lil Jordan Humphrey, who had a great connection with Jaxson Dart in the preseason, who's a 6'4", pretty fast receiver, get him back on the, in the lineup, and let's get something going. I don't want to trot these guys out for the sake of trotting them out because, we have so much invested and we drafted and whatever. We've learned that lesson already with some of the other guys like Evan Neal, and I guess we haven't learned our lesson with Deonte Banks. Unfortunately, they're still trying to get as much out of him as they can. But yeah, let's do something because if I'm the Saints defensive coordinator, I'm watching film and I'm going to try to limit Jaxson Dart's rushing ability. And the Giants have to be able to throw the football and run with their running backs and run effectively. I think that is the recipe to beat the Saints, and I think this is a team that the Giants can beat. And again, it's I'm not going out of here and saying, oh, they could beat the Eagles. They can't and they won't. But beating a beatable team, I think, goes a long way in terms of, okay, we're moving in the right direction. We're turning a new leaf. We are cooking with some gas here finally. And I think that's would be huge, not just for Jaxson Dart's confidence and for Giant fan support, but for Brian Daboll and that regime too. It would be leaps and bounds for them to go down and win a road game in New Orleans. And you think about it too. I mean, you look at 2-3 versus 1-4 is drastically different, especially when you have games coming up against the Eagles and against the Broncos and against these good teams. They're going to need to take care of business in weeks like this. But with that said, I really don't have much else to say. I didn't want to harp too much on the bad, and I wanted to come on and bring a different side of me that I haven't been able to tap into in a while. So, with that being said, thank you all for listening, and I'm really looking forward to the other half of Decleated for Seamus's take on a crazy 40-40 tie between the Packers and the Cowboys. I'm sure he's going to have a hell of a lot to say about that. I don't know how he's going to fit it into one episode or one solo episode, but I'm sure he will find a way. But until the two of us jump back on again for a full episode, I will catch you all later. Please be sure to like, share, comment, argue with me in the comments, whatever, follow everything on all social medias at Decleated Pod. And I also started posting some of these the recordings up on YouTube too, if that's your cup of tea. You get to see me and Seamus's beautiful faces while we rant about our favorite teams. So check us out. That is at Decleated Podcast, the full podcast on YouTube.